So this is our presentation about both sides being targeted and privileged, and this is by the fantastic fungi. So first off, we decided to compare our groups with fungi, and with this picture, you see that fungi in this environment are privileged. They're in an area that is dark, moist, and rich in decaying plant or animal debris. Their background allows them to thrive and prosper to their fullest potential compared to any other environment. However, fungi in this neighborhood are still able to take advantage of their privilege and stand up for the marginalized communities that different groups of fungi inhabit. And with that, we can see the privileged social groups that we explore in this presentation, which include ability, language, and education level. So let's get on to the privileged social groups.
One of the social groups of privilege that we explored is ability, and this being privileged inability level means that you are not limited by your physical or mental impairments, such as needing a wheelchair or having vision impairments. Able-bodied people do not have to worry if their daily routine may be impacted by buildings or transportation not being accessible to them, allowing able-bodied people to have access to more opportunities than those available to those who are temporarily or permanently disabled.
Another privilege is language. In the US and other English-speaking countries, speaking fluent English means that you are more privileged than those who do not have English as a native language. English speakers are able to communicate easily with the world around them. Those who cannot speak English well are ultimately disadvantaged as they're able to receive the same opportunities, information, and more. English speakers have the privilege of access to employment and education in their first language.
And finally, education level. Having privilege in education is having the opportunity and resources to achieve the best education possible. Being privileged in education can lead to better outcomes and offer many other directions when deciding on a career path. Targeted groups are not given this chance and are often cut short of their potential, while individuals that are privileged in education have a higher chance of achieving their career and life goals.
So as you can see on the bottom right image of the fungi, you can see that it's a lot different from the one on the top left. It looks like very dry and hard, which is not what fungi usually look like. And so fungi in this environment are targeted. They're not in their natural world, but surrounded by dry cement and artificial light. Their background is considered to be targeted by oppression due to their appearance and environment. There are a plethora of incidents where targeted groups are unable to access similar resources to their privileged counterparts, though with increased actions of allies, both groups are benefited and given necessary opportunities through future justice. And so the targeted social groups explored in this presentation is race.
In our group, we belong to several different targeted social groups: Asian, Black, Latinx, Indigenous, etc. Race is simply a system that we use to categorize one another derived from our origin, features, and skin color. No matter who we are, the social identity of our race has a large influence on how we experience life. In Dr. Pryor's lectures, she mentions, racism supports racial inequality in assignment of social privilege. This social construct validates privilege according to distinct physical characteristics. Racism is a system of assigning opportunity and value. Pryor's research and teachings have shown us that the conditions in which people are born into, whether that be race, ethnicity, and socioeconomic status or others, can shape the distribution of privilege, power, and resources on a systemic level. Similar to the fungi in the targeted environment, it is more difficult for oppressed racial/ethnic groups to speak out for the inequalities they experience. This introduces huge mental health impacts on a person, including ongoing depression, sadness, and having a constant fear of being attacked, verbally or physically. Racism and racial discrimination may lead to other ongoing issues such as internalized racism or even self-hatred towards oneself or others who identify in the same group.
Members within our group have experienced these targets themselves. Our first experience was a few months ago. I picked up an early shift at my job and was working with only 2 other employees. My job is a Black-owned business in a primarily white neighborhood that prioritizes the employment of Black and brown teens. That day, a middle-aged white man came in with his wife and daughter and ordered food. We prepared his food and delivered to him and his family, but as they sat down to eat, he complained about his meal. We value customer service, so of course we fixed it to his liking, but he continued to complain about it over and over again. There was nothing wrong with his food. He started yelling at us, calling us incompetent, along with a few racial slurs directed at our employees and the business. His wife tried to calm him down, and when he wouldn't stop berating us, we called our manager to speak with him privately. Eventually, he and his family left, but we were stunned by this unusual and overtly racist encounter.
The second anecdote states, my personal experience with racism occurred my sophomore year when a fellow classmate called me the N-word during a class discussion about slavery. I attend a predominantly white and Hispanic school with an all-white administration. After this incident, the teacher in this class did not say anything and the administration tried to downplay the situation. For weeks, I was shunned by everyone around me and felt very alone. The individual refused to accept their fault and led many others to pick on me and caused me to lose many of the people I called friends.
All right, so our third experience is people constantly come up to my family and ask me the question, where are you from? While that seems like a very simple question, there is no simple answer. As I state that I'm from Michigan, I brace myself for the follow-up question, where are you really from? Curiosity is natural, but the intrusional questions infer that we are less American than others. There are so many layers to my identity that I don't owe explanations to, especially not to a stranger. Yamal Saeed Menendez elegantly wrote, where are you from? To conclude that asking questions to answer unconscious biases is a microaggression and makes community members feel different and alone.
And with these personal anecdotes and experiences, there are plenty of ways for us to become active allies. What we've listed for now is what we can do as individuals. First off, we can get involved, which includes donating to anti-discrimination organizations or joining a local cultural awareness club at your school or college.
The second way we can get involved is by creating an open space for others to share their experiences at home and within friend groups. We can do this by avoiding stereotypes and microaggressions, and importantly, listening to other stories and validating how they feel.
Our third thing we can do is to not be afraid to make friends who are different from us, whether it's racially, culturally, or religiously.
And you can also educate others. Have the difficult conversation with loved ones and friends if they're discriminating against a certain group of people. And also don't be afraid to speak out and describe your own experiences.
Acknowledge your privilege and utilize it to help those who are not.
What we can do as a community: acknowledge the targeted groups and establish groups or support for those affected.
We can educate the public through groups or organizations and use social media to raise awareness about the discrimination that certain groups go through. We can do things like create a hashtag or movement for others to use.
It's also important for all of us to be supportive of diversity, normalize people hanging out with those who are different from them.
And when seeing any sort of discrimination, stand together as a group to show support.
Thank you for listening. This is the Fantastic Fungi.